All right, ready to dive in. We're tackling phrasal verbs today.
Phrasal verbs.
Which, let's be real.
Yeah.
They're everywhere in English. You can't escape them.
You can't. And honestly, that's a good thing. Once you get comfy with them,
Oh, it's a game changer, for sure.
fluency just skyrockets, you know?
Totally. And we've got 10 of these verbs lined up. Think of it like a level 1 starter pack. Perfect if you're just dipping your toes in, or even if you just want a little refresher.
Exactly. And what we're really going to dig into is how these verbs, they're not just about the action, right? Like anyone can say, look.
Right.
But English speakers, we spice it up a bit. We look for things. We look after each other. It's those little words, the prepositions, that add a whole other dimension.
Okay, so let's take look after, for example. I mean, it implies a certain level of care, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. If you're just keeping an eye on something, you're watching it, right? But looking after someone or something, it suggests this sense of responsibility.
Right, like I'm looking after my neighbor's cat. That means I'm not just watching it stare out the window all day.
Exactly.
I'm feeding it, making sure it's got water, maybe even a little catnip if it's lucky.
See? It's that extra layer of care and attention, and that's what makes phrasal verbs so nuanced. And often those nuances are packed with emotional weight, too.
Yeah, speaking of emotional weight, how about give up? I mean, that one's a bit of a downer, isn't it?
It can be. Like if you give up on a project, that suggests a sense of defeat, yeah.
Yeah.
But then again, you can also give up smoking, which is a positive thing.
Well, that's true. It's all about context, isn't it?
Exactly. The same two words can have completely different vibes depending on what's around them. That's the beauty of language, I guess. And that's something to remember with all of these verbs. Don't just memorize the definition. Try to get a feel for the feeling behind it.
Okay, so context is key. Got it. But let's go back to look for a sec. We've got look for and look after. On our list, they both start with look, but they mean totally different things. Is that just a coincidence, or is there something more to it?
Good catch. It's not a coincidence at all. Remember those prepositions we talked about, those particles? They're doing a lot of heavy lifting when it comes to meaning. Look for, you're actively searching, right? There's a goal in mind. But look after, it's more about ongoing care, a sense of duty almost.
So basically, those little words can make or break the meaning.
They really can, yeah. And that's something to watch out for with other phrasal verbs, too. Pay attention to the particles, because they often hold the key to understanding the bigger picture.
I like that, the bigger picture. So we've talked about care, we've talked about giving up. There's a lot of emotion packed into these everyday verbs.
There really is.
What's the takeaway here? What do we want our listeners to walk away with today?
Honestly, I think the most important thing is just to use them. The more you use phrasal verbs, the more natural they'll feel.
That's good advice for pretty much anything in language learning, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's like learning a musical instrument.
Yeah.
You can read all the books in the world, but until you pick it up and start playing, you're not really going to make any music.
Love that analogy. So to our listeners out there, pick a phrasal verb, any phrasal verb from today, and try weaving it into a conversation. See how it feels, and don't be afraid to experiment a bit.
Exactly. Have some fun with it. Because the more comfortable you get with phrasal verbs, the more fluent and confident you'll sound in English. And who knows, you might even surprise yourself with how much you enjoy using them.
I think that's the perfect note to end on. So until next time, happy language learning, everyone.